meet my bride. Let's go for a ride in my newfangled automobile. Just where we will go, nobody knows, but it's sure a great way to feel. Behind the wheel of the speed meter steel, it's my newfangled automobile.
Hello and welcome to Vintage Car History. I'm Wild Bill. Since ancient times, there's been a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. But sometimes it's the other way around. For example, the screw was invented hundreds of years before the screwdriver, yet the two are inseparable today. And when cars were invented and used on roads, problems arose, which led to more inventions. The Boyce Moto-Meter addressed a problem common to all thermosiphon water-cooled cars of the day, overheating, and could be found on most cars of the vintage era. So let's take a look at the Moto-Meter, starting with the man behind it. Harrison Hurlbert Boyce was born in Jericho, a small town on Long Island, New York, in 1882. His father, William, was a successful plumber and pipe fitter, and young Harrison was given a quality education. He chose a career in engineering, receiving his degree in 1903. Thermodynamics was of particular interest to him, and his first job out of college was with the local manufacturer of industrial valves, owned by a Mr. George Townsend. By this time, cars were becoming somewhat common on the roads of Long Island. And, of course, the first Vanderbilt Cup races were also held there. The first road in the USA designed specifically for car use was also constructed on the island, again by Vanderbilt, and the car craze was in full swing on Long Island by 1910. Boyce was quite enthusiastic about cars, yet he noticed a problem with just about all of them at the time. They overheated rather easily. Most cars that were water-cooled had thermosiphon systems. They worked after a fashion, but would not provide sufficient engine cooling when on long trips, or when the car was idling for long periods or traveling very slowly. And the only way to tell that the engine was overheating was when either hoses or the radiator blew up. Once that happened, it was too late. The engine would be seriously damaged or even seize up irreparably. Boyce put his inventive mind to work and by 1912 invented a device that could help to avert engine damage from overheating. His device, which he called Indicating Means for Motor-Propelled Vehicles, was quite simple. Replacing the existing radiator cap, which at the time was not under the hood like cars today, it was basically a radiator cap with a thermometer in it. A large disc extended from the top of the cap with a small window near the center. When the water temperature got high enough, the window would allow the driver to see the red mercury rising and would know that it was time to pull over and let the engine cool back down. It was a good idea, but Harrison didn't have the money to put it into production. So he approached Mr. Townsend with the idea of partnering up and starting a new company to build and sell them. Townsend agreed, and a few months later, the Moto-Meter Company, Inc. was established with George Townsend as president and Harrison Boyce as chief engineer. The product was an instant success. True, it didn't prevent the engine from overheating, and sometimes the Moto-Meter was just too late in indicating an overheating problem, yet it did provide an early warning of pending trouble in most cases, and soon the automotive aftermarket was flooded with them. Advertisements in newspapers and automotive magazines spread the word, and within a year, thousands of Boyce Moto-Meters had been sold in the U.S. market. The auto racing circuit is where the Moto-Meter saw its first widespread use and endorsement. Race drivers lauded the device for saving their engine on race day, as they would stop to cool the engine while the other races, not equipped with them, overheated and blew their pistons out of the block. The word spread, and so did the sales. Everyday drivers were buying their Boyce Moto-Meters to replace the factory radiator cap, and the U.S. automotive industry took notice. Packard approached the Moto-Meter Company with a request. Make Moto-Meters with the Packard emblem on them so they can offer them on their new cars. This would be the first of many manufacturers, Mercer, Stutz, Winton, and others, that would private label Moto-Meters for their own production. The aftermarket also exploded with them, and by 1917 they could be purchased with the new car as standard with many makers, as well as offered as an option from the factory or dealerships. Auto parts stores, which were coming into vogue at the time, also had them for purchase off the shelf. A quick sidebar, which came first, the Moto-Meter or the hood ornament, or mascot, depending on which side of the pond you're on. The hood ornament came first, the Spirit of Ecstasy first appearing on the 1909 Rolls-Royce Silver Ghost. Anywho, soon the company was receiving requests to offer options to add some bling to their Moto-Meters. Brass, nickel, and later chrome options for the body of the device were offered, as well as wing attachments emerging from the base of it. Soon, other designs became available, from protrusions meant to look like aircraft propellers to small balls at the end of metal rods. And sometimes these balls would be enameled with more company logos on them to further personalize the car. Even small mascot sculptures such as winged cherubs or ladies in flowing robes would adorn the front of the Moto-Meter. And since the important feature was at the back towards the driver, such additions became quite popular. Right after World War I, the demand for cars was immense, and with it so was the demand for Moto-Meters. Although other companies tried to jump on the bandwagon and make versions of their own, so great was the market presence of Moto-Meter that they absolutely dominated the American market. By the mid-1920s, over 10 million had been sold and fitted to just about any and every make of car on American roads and beyond. The company opened additional factories in England, Canada, Australia, France, and Germany to keep up with the demand. With hundreds of car makers across the world offering Moto-Meters from their factories and dealerships, Moto-Meters could be had with just about any car maker's logo emblazoned proudly on the meter's front plate. Many organizations also wanted to have their own custom Moto-Meters. The Masons, the Rotary Club, AAA, Knights of Columbus, and even the Red Cross all ordered their Moto-Meters with their logos on them. National themes were also popular, with American flags and eagles, Union Jacks, and fleur-de-lis designs available on the aftermarket. Few automotive accessories have been so heavily customized in car history as the humble Moto-Meter. Alas, it would not last forever. By 1930, cars began to have temperature gauges in the cab on the dashboard, which rendered the Moto-Meter obsolete. Though Harris and Boyce did invent and patent such a system in 1917, it was not pursued, and by 1934, the company shut down and sold off the assets. Boyce himself would continue in the industry, producing engine grease and fuel additives under the company name Boyce-Veeder Corporation. Today, antique Moto-Meters and replicas are available online for owners of cars with thermosiphon systems. And of course, there are many companies in the modern automotive world that make products for cars that can be customized and personalized to suit the owner's fancy. And they're following the example of one of the first and greatest car accessory makers of all time. Thanks for watching Vintage Car History, and we'll see you next week. Peace.